Hey everybody, we just had a big 14-person cube F&M last night. Realized that, a lot of people don't kind of know what the cube's about. What is a cube? Want to go over that real quick. So, cube in short is just a custom set of cards that we're going to end up drafting. The one I maintain is a modern cube with the Cube Cobra link down in the description of this. You can go check out the whole list. You can do mock drafts of it there. The premise of this one is it is all the modern legal cards. For those of you who don't play the modern format, starts with I think 8th edition going forward with a few bans. So we adhere to the ban list and we stick to cards that can see play in the modern format. So you don't see all the commander cards necessarily unless they've been printed in through a standard set or one of the Modern Horizons set. One of the defining features of the modern format the the mana base that you can get, which is basically shocks and fetches, and eventually triomes would come in. You can play a lot of colors here. Because it's a cube, we've had so many sets. The cards that you're going to see in a pack, and I'll do a sample pack here in a second, almost all of them would be a first pick in their first limited environment. So you could go through and you'll see, oh, this card could just end the game all by itself, or this card has incredible combos. There's a lot of combos in this cube compared to what you would see in a normal limited set. So you can go infinite, you can just kill people right on the spot. You can end up with engines where you can recur something repeatedly, or you can do some really powerful stuff. Those things are not always in the same color, so you have a lot of different mana requirements. You have a lot of intense mana requirements, and you have in this the opportunity to have some of the best mana available to you. So here's a sample pack. All of these cards, things like Eternal Witness and Craterhoof, I mean, those are all stars in powerful formats like Commander. With Liliana in the Veil of the Veil, Nahir, you have two Planeswalkers in this pack. Liliana can take over a game all by herself, make it a low resource game. Nahiri can cheat in massive things as well as take care of problem artifacts and enchantments. Things like Witch's Oven combos off with sack outlets. So you have a Wrath up there, which you wouldn't even see in a lot of limited, booster limited, or they'd be very expensive. Monstrous Rage is one of the best tricks. Again, Hullbreaker Horror, Batterskull, completely unbeatable in the late game, or Kindling Phoenix mid range. Monsters, Subtlety, you would never see anything like that in a standard set, something you can play for free. Path to Exile is better than any point removal. And then Aragorn is just a monster card with an incredible mana requirement. But so just went through everything that wasn't a land. Bangers, right? This is just a sample pack. I pulled a sample pack from Cube Cobra, and this is what I got. Do you want to highlight these two lands? So we have a fetch land and a shock land available to us. This is actually where I would look first. Despite seeing all of those other powerful cards, I would look at these cards. And from this pack, I would probably pick one of these cards first. I'd probably take the Wooded Foothills, and I'm going to go into the rationale of why. Yeah, because you're casting these powerful spells, you require excellent mana. All of those cards I shared, super powerful. If you get them down a single turn earlier, could be the difference between winning and losing. If you get stuck with a powerful card in your hand, it is a liability. It's not going to help you win. So, also because all of the cards in your deck are going to be powerful, if you just play 17 basic lands, you're missing out on the opportunity to have very powerful spell-like effects from your utility lands. They're going to come in, they're going to do things, basically give you a free spell. So there's 540 cards in the cube. There's roughly 75 lands, give or take, depending on the iteration. So you should expect to see two lands per pack. And if you took the average, if you took two lands every pack, you should end up with about six lands as a quick benchmark. So if you compare yourself at the end of a draft, do I have six lands? Do I have more or less? Am I taking them on average, higher than average, or lower than average? Few different ways to think of the lands that are in the cube. A lot of cycles. The fetch, shock, triome, surveil lands. Those are all mana producing lands that provide you some value. You have the creature lands that provide you wrath resistant creatures that can provide extra value. Basically, again, a spell like effect. The Horizon Bicycle lands they fix with some card draw ability. color utilities play into gameplay, and then the colorless ones. We'll go into all of them in detail here, but just wanted to share what those uh, that there are a bunch of different cycles, and this is constantly being updated to be consistent with what's in the modern format. The number one land in the format is the fetches. This is what defines the modern format. Early on, for those old heads like me, it was defined by fetch shocks. So you have the fetch lands, and then I'll go over the shock land. Uh, all of them have this same text: tap, pay life, search for a one basic land type or another. This is basic land type. These are not basic lands, and that's what makes them completely different than say an evolving wilds, and they come into play untapped. So for one life, and you can go get and tap and sack this. You can go get either of those two types. Why is that so important? With something like the shock lands that have the basic land type, so we just had marsh flats, which was you get a plains or a swamp. You can come get a hollowed fountain, so for 3 life, you could from a marsh flats get a plains for 1 life, a swamp for 1 life, or for 3 life, you could get both a plains and a swamp and an island in the instance if you had a hollowed fountain in your deck as well. So you could cast a blue spell on that first turn. So it is 3 life, and you're to do all this, and you have to use the draft picks, but this gives you the ability to be fast and play lots of different colors. So if you're paying 3 life, but it triggers off your combo or you cast your super early, your super powerful spell early, very helpful. So any one shock land, so we'll use the marsh flats, can get in this case it'll get 4 of these 5, 6, 7, 8. So one fetch land can get 8 of the shocks, any 8 of the shocks here. So the only ones that the marsh flats that we had before can't get is the stomping grounds, can't get the steam vents, and it can't get the breeding pool. So you take one fetch land, now all of a sudden 7 of these shock lands become available to you. Good thing about the shocks, you can also just not pay the 2 life and just have them come into play tap. So end of turn, bring those in, which used to be pretty standard until recently when we got a new cycle. So if you were going to have one come into play tapped, then you now have the additional option of you can get these triomes, which will get 3 colors. And so in the case of the marsh flats, where you could have gotten 7 of the 10 shock lands, you can get 9 of the 10 triomes. Basically means with the triomes, your splashes become very cheap for the cost of basically 1 mana of the triumph coming to play tapped and the 1 life. So, and they have the cycling ability, which does come up. I did actually cycle to some effect last night in our draft, but the triomes let you splash very freely if you can get even one of the on colors. So if you can get, so if you are in this instance, we have a plains swamp forest. So even if I'm a red white deck, I can get green or black or green, basically for free by having a triome for splash cards. So I can now splash combos, powerful cards, off color activations, lots of abilities there. So those those 3 cycles there were very powerful for a while and made up the mana base. We just added the 4th one from Murders at Karlov Manor, and this is the Surveil lands. The difference between these and the shocks is they always have to enter tapped. So think of them as costing 1 mana, but every one of them lets you surveil one. So at the end of your opponent's turn, you can fetch one of these up, surveil the top, put stuff into your graveyard, and of course, if there's something you don't need, then you get to put that away. So it's like you get about a half of a consider or an opt for free. So you get all of these just out of your mana base. Plus, there's a lot of graveyard synergies. Putting stuff in the graveyard is super helpful. And they also have the basic land type, and that's why you're able to fetch them. So those 4 cycles all interconnect to let you cast really powerful multicolor spells and stay on track by prioritizing fetches and these for the 3 cycles that have the basic land types along with them. If you have any of the on color ones, so if you're a red green deck, any of the on color, mountain forest cards, high priority. And then as you splash, you really want to start looking at ways to. So if I'm a green red deck, and I need to splash a white card or a black, let's use a black card. So I need a sacrifice outlet. I have one of the black sacrifice outlets, something like Raucous Theater, gets me my red mana, and basically I can get my black in there for free. Very simply, lets me keep one of my off color splashes and keep it fetches and gives me multiple sources. Okay, we just went through all of the fetching, the getting your colors on time. Now let's get let's get a bit of utility, but still keep our colors online. We are going to go to all the restless land cycles. This is a 10 card cycle. All of these creatures are very powerful. Their lands that turn into creatures. These will all end the game quickly and provide some additional value along the way. So these are cards that are all wrath resistant. There's always a ton of wraths in the cube. So you need to so these can be protected there. They will fix your colors, and if it's a game where you need additional resources, these are great because they will end the game and they will provide you more resources most of the time. The last cycle is this one's split up between the enemy colors. All use the Horizon cycle where you lose a life every turn, but you can basically cycle them from in play to draw a card, and the Bicycle lands. So these are like the Triomes, but they only do two colors and they cycle for two. Both of these are incomplete cycles, so whenever either one of them completes to 10, probably going to get updated there. It'd be nice if it was the Bicycle because they have the dual land type where you can fetch these up, but we will see. So the last kind of section for the colored one is colored lands. I'm going to use lands in quotes because you have cards that are actually spells that can get you lands that provide utility. They could be monocolored and they just play into some of the major gameplays. They could be land cyclers, where these are spells that are not great rates for the spell that they are, but they can cycle very cheaply. You would like Lorien Revealed. So you can go get and all of the basic land cycler, or they're not basic land cycle, they have the basic land type, and they can all go, they act just like fetches. They can go get triomes, they can get shocks. So uh, thinking of these five there, like the Oliphant, the Troll of Khazad-dûm. So these are cards that would not see play on their own in the cube, but because they can fix land, and they get themselves in the graveyard for other effects. Super helpful. And then you have the flip lands. These lands can the double face lands. These are again spells that are probably not powerful enough to make the cube on their own, but on the backside you do get a tap land, so you can get your spell count up. All of us hate at the end of the game top decking a land. This helps you out a little bit there, or early on, it's a land. It may come into play tap, but it keeps you from mulliganing, giving you an advantage there. You're seeing how you're getting all these little advantages through your land base. The last section is the colorless utility lands. These usually play into a very specific archetype, or just provide some general value across the board. So, thinking about here, you get the Urza Saga that goes and searches up things like Shadow Spear, Colossus Hammer. Field of Ruin can just take people off land for a second. Vendor's Fair is playing into the artifact decks. And the Scavenger Grounds help you out against all of the graveyard decks. So they're not going to produce a color, but they're basically an extra spell. And if you're not being super greedy, if you're not playing a 3/4 color deck, this is a way to just sneak in an extra spell into your deck and still further your game plan or disrupt your opponent. Okay, all that said, we just went through a whole bunch of different categories of lands, where are the use cases more or less. Let's get into a practical example here of how this mana base is going to differ from, say, a regular booster draft. So in this instance, let's do a Duskmourn draft where I have a red blue deck and I want to splash a black card here. So in this instance, we are going to be using 7 islands, 7 mountains, 1 swamp. I have a Terramorphic Expanse and the blue black tap land there. So for a standard booster draft in Duskmourn, this is probably about as good as you could get. What that really means is I have 9 blue sources, 7 islands. The Terramorphic Expanse can be an island, and the Murky Sewer. 8 red sources, 3 black sources. No utility for my land. My lands don't do anything besides get mana, except for if you think the Terramorphic Expanse going to your graveyard. Uh, Maybe Fuel and Delirium, right? That would be the closest to utility you're getting out of your land. That's not mana. Okay, let's go to a bad, and by bad I mean you're getting your six non-basic lands from the pack and contributing them to this deck. Same thing. It's going to be the same situation where we have an Izzet deck where we're trying to splash a black card. In this instance, we're using 6 swamps, 5 island, blue-red tap land, just a red. This is a red creature land as well, so we have 2 creatures here. We got a Zagroth Triome here, which just gives me the island and the swamp. I'm not using the forest at all in this deck in this instance. The Blood Crypt gets me the tap, and then the Fetid Pool and 1 fetch, and it's not even fetch. It's only on color with one of my primary colors. So not awesome. We're not having a ton of land. Only one in our 2 color land that produces our 2 primary colors. We still have increased our blue sources from 9 to 10. Kept our red sources the same with 8. We've picked up an additional black source, so we're more likely to cast our single black card in this instance. But we have 4 non-mana utility effects here. 2 of them are creatures. 2 of them are cycling, give us the ability to draw cards late in the game. So this is a pretty marked improvement without dedicating anything more than what's standard for you. Now let's go look at a good example of a cube deck where we've prioritized taking our land early. We're down to 4 islands, 4 mountains. So we have with the fetches, we've gone up to 2. Still, neither one of them are primarily our red blue. It's not our Scalding Tarn, which is red blue. We did get an additional. We got a Triome that's on all 3 of our colors. We got an additional Surveil land that's on 2 of our colors, and then a couple of other lands that hit our tap, which hit our splash color, and the Oliphant, which isn't really in our mana base, but does let us cycle for mountains. So we've gone up to 14 blue sources now. So there are 14 different ways to get blue mana out of this deck, which is only 3 less than the entire mana sources from our normal standard deck. So it's like every single land we have is blue. So we're not going to have any trouble with blue. We also have 11 red sources, which is more than initially we started with our primary color in our standard deck. We have 2 more sources than we had that initially. We have 7 black sources, which is almost as much as we started with our primary color. So just as reliable as you would think of your primary color being in standard booster draft. This now our splash color is as useful there. And we have 9 different ways to get utility out of our non-mana utility out of our lands compared to what we were before. A lot of that has to do with the 2 fetches being able to go get the Surveil land and being able to be able to push stuff off the top there. So this is just an example of how powerful this can be. And what this means is we're going to be casting our spells, we're going to be getting little small advantages throughout the game, and we're going to be able to play powerful cards from 3 different colors, not just 2. So all right, I'll share more series like this. I'll go through different colors, different parts of the cube, but I just wanted to go over this mana source part because it's so fundamental to the modern cube and what you're able to do there. So look for look forward to sharing more with you guys.